I'm up at Amory earlier point today. The heather's absolutely gorgeous. It really is coming to its own now. Generally, the second and third week of August, it hits its peak and remains for several weeks thereafter. But so the honeybees will be very busy. They'll be doing overtime just now. I've just noticed the siskin back up in that tree, but again, I'll not go into that because I don't want to be repetitive on anything. So I've just, there's a tune, Bolero, I've not heard that for a while. I better not play it loud because I'll probably not be able to load this for copyright purposes. And gentle background music. Maybe I'll put my fan off. Yeah, it's quite hot. I shouldn't be in the car. I should be out walking. I'm gonna get my urge to get back in the hills again. And I was up well before 7 o'clock, which is not bad for Sunday morning. And I mean, I only had 7 hours sleep, but 7 hours good sleep, and starting to feel a bit better again. Anyway, what I did was I brought this book. I think I mentioned it. No, I didn't load it. I edited it out. But Children of the Dead End by Patrick McGill. I did mention Patrick McGill, and I read that book a couple of years back. It reduced me to tears. And truthfully, when I reached the culmination of it was absolutely heartbreaking. True story as well. But just the background to it very briefly is, without spoiling anything, is they come over from Ireland in the late 19th century, early 20th century, and they're potato harvesting, tatty picking. But they're treated with the utmost contempt by the landowners and stuff, and they're actually forced to sleep beside the pigs in sties and stuff, no joke. This is his account, and that was including the females. And there's a talk of them, you know, I mentioned in the last couple of vlogs, I think I was on about this stuff anyway, about a lot of vagrancy in that period. Much higher numbers than we witness nowadays. There's a lot of poor people, but relatively poor people in comparison of the rich. But in those days, there was no, there was obviously no social security, no benefits at all, and so there was no safety net, and they had to walk to find work, and that's what they done. And they lived off what they could on the land, where they could. So it was a bit of a free-for-all, including probably a bit stealing of you know, chickens and hens from yards and the odd egg here and there. But really, really dreadful. This guy who writes in this book, I mean, he just describes it perfectly in his own personal account. And these guys were involved in the Blackwater Dam. If you want to know where Blackwater Dam is, it's just to the east of Kinlochleven, which is quite near Glencoe. And I've been to Blackwater Dam. I'll give you that story just now, actually. It skirts Rannoch Moor. It's really in the dead centre of Rannoch. And I had arrived in Kinlochleven, and I went in and got my meal. I had a huge backpack on. I mean, it was enormous. I had my tent and sleeping bag and all my provisions, and everything was in there for a three-day event. And so I had my meal, and I had a pint of lager, I think it was. And I was paying the woman. She says, "Where are you off for?" I said, "I'm going up to the Blackwater and heading over to Crieff eventually, but I'm going up by Loch direction." But she said, "I'll try and imitate her voice as best I can anyway." She said, "No, don't do that." and she put the absolute shitters in me. And she probably said it in a much scarier voice than that. No, don't do that. And so I said, well, that's my intention, and that's where I'm going, that's my plan, I've got it all worked out. And she just shook her head. So whether this woman was some sort of seer, sixth sense, and anyway, I ventured right up, following mostly the pipe that came from the dam down to the aluminium smelter that was based in Kinlochleven. I don't know if it's still operational, I'm sure it is. But the dam was purposely built for that reason, and it was used by these people I'm talking about, the Patrick McGill story. Lots of people gathered because the money apparently was very good. But there's a lot of death there as well. And as a result, when I got up there was this is very strange. When I eventually got up, because it was a heck of a hike, it was near dusk, but I spotted, I thought, what is that over there? Not knowing it was a graveyard, and I went over. Most of it's unnamed graves, just stones, a little fence around it, tiny little fence, and there was I think it was a plaque that told it was the fallen people of the Blackwater Dam. But what had transpired is a lot of people who had been working on that. You've got to remember, these people were working and drinking and working and drinking and playing cards and doing all that sort of stuff because they didn't have any entertainment. And a lot of them would venture far just to get a drink. And the result was that a lot of them perished out in the midst of Rannoch Moor, or in all conditions. If you've ever been to Rannoch, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the most inhospitable place, and if you ever unfortunate enough to get caught in a blizzard in Rannoch and you can't get your directions, it's pretty, well, you can actually say goodbye, because if the cold and stuff doesn't get you, the hypothermia, it'll be you'll end up in the water easily because there's so much water. It's just a big sponge. It's saturated. It's absolutely saturated. There's deep pools everywhere. There's lots of people have went out for a walk and never returned because they're in Rannoch Moor. I've crossed it, but I skirted the. Well, let me just continue. So I'm looking at this graveyard, and already the weather's started to close in, and I'm on my own. And the place is it's now got this atmosphere attached to it, and these black laden skies rolling over from the west, and of course the wind picked up, and I'll talk about a wind that you could not imagine could blow on our land anyway. And I couldn't get my tent up. I couldn't even stand, and eventually all I could do, because when the rain came, it just came in a torrent, and it was utterly howling, battering rain, and wind. The wind seemed to come from every direction. It was horrific. It was terrible, and it was just a few hours before my birthday, and so it was the end of August, and anyway, I couldn't get the tent up, so I had to just gather big rocks best I could and put them on top of the outer layer of the tent and crawl in. It was a hell of a night, because you remember the end of August, it's dark when the 9:15. It's sun's gone to bed much earlier, and it's now in darkness, and it's a long time till dawn. But I made it through the night. That was good. But when I started to cross over the Blackwater, I think they've actually closed it off because people were starting to do silly antics on it for the YouTube uploads and stuff. But anyway, I could, at that time you could cross over, and the water levels are so high that they were actually coming over the top. So as I'm walking, I'm walking through a 300 metre, maybe 400 metre waterfall. It wasn't. It was just enough to get me over. It was a very stupid, dangerous thing to do. I had no other options available. I could have backtracked my footsteps or abandoned journey, or I could have, skirted the Loch. But no, that wouldn't have happened. It's too long. So that's all I could do. And the rain was relentless. It didn't go off. So everything I had was pretty wet anyway. So I'm just going to continue this story. And Patrick McGill stuff can hold fire. As I got to the other side, where the foot tracks and the pathways that exist from people walking over the years existed, had turned into torrents of water. And you couldn't tell the difference between a path or a stream, a Scottish burn. And my sense of direction was also altered by the fact that there was low mist, and it was pretty awful actually. But I've got a good sense of direction, and I kind of stepped out far enough. Now I found a bothy. I've never seen it marked anyway. I don't know what bothy it is. Hopefully somebody maybe watches this and is able to advise. But it was on the left-hand side as I was heading towards Loch, and it wasn't far enough over to be some of the main bothies that you get in that region. But I'd gone in and I had trout. I cooked it on a small stove, and I had that with some, I think it was tea, I believe. I had tea. And so eventually I kept managing to go, but it was a slow pace. I mean, I'm talking about a mile and a half an hour instead of my usual, 3 miles, 2.5 to 3 miles an hour. It was slow going. The purpose being, I was going to abandon the trip at this stage, instead of walking all the way back to Rannoch station in a loop. I had decided that I was just going to try and get to Crieff and get the train. And I tried to work out when it would leave Fort William and when it would get to Crieff. So time was against me. So what I decided to do was take a shortcut, which turned into a long cut and a wet cut. And when I came down off the slope, there was a burn that you probably be able to tiptoe across in dry weather, or at least use a stepping stone, the rocks as a pathway. But it was just an absolute volume of roaring, brown, yucky, white horses water, and I'm talking and raging. And it was the only way across. And normally I'm not stupid with my well-being, but I just had to get across the other side. I took my rucksack off my shoulders, not realising just how heavy it was with the rain on top, and it was pretty wet, and the weight. As I threw it with all my strength, I didn't make it the other side with that rucksack. And the rucksack, that sinking feeling of your heart hitting your stomach, it's like when you're like a female tells you they don't want to see you anymore. That's that kind of feeling. And a girlfriend or something like that. My heart hit my stomach, and I watched my rucksack just get carried downstream. So I had to run and chase it, and eventually got caught up in a pool. And I went in to get that rucksack out and get it out the other side and get myself out the other side. So I was soaked from head to toe, and also the rucksack weighed a ton. And I still had quite a bit to go. And unknown to me, because my map that I had actually cut off before I got to Loch, which is pretty stupid. That Bolero's a bit of a nuisance when it gets to that part. Why didn't you not write it properly and stop that nonsense at the end? So I've switched it down. So what I've done was I eventually got on a track, and of course the day has just disappeared, and it's getting dark. The train's gone by. I meant to say that when I was clambering up this heather slope, the train shot by me. So that was that out, and I knew I was going to be stuck out in the wilds for for a second night, but this time soaking wet and all my gear soaking. And as I walked along, I saw the lights of this car. I thought, what the hell is a car doing along there? And I tried to quicken my steps. Not easy with a wet rucksack that weighs a ton. I'm talking a full pack. But I tried to get, walk quickly, jog along, try to get to these lights. There were lights of some description. It was a vehicle. So it wasn't, peculiar lights. It was a vehicle. But obviously didn't see me, and off they took. I don't even know who they were. If it was gamekeepers or railway people, I don't know who they were. But they didn't see me. But as I walked along a bit further, I saw this speck of light on the horizon. I'm just going to be honest with you. There was a sense of foreboding about it, because about the whole thing, because I felt that I wasn't going to actually make it. As wet as I was actually starting to get quite cold, and I'd kind of sapped all my energy, and I thought, this is not good. And you're not going to get to Rannoch. You're not going to get anywhere with civilization tonight. And anyway, this feeling came across me, and I can only explain that from my own thing, that there's some element of something stronger than your guardian angel. Well, it would be the guardian angel, but it's something very, very, what's the word? It just felt like there was an avenue had been opened up, and I was going to be okay. It was like I'm trying to just think back exactly how I felt at that moment. It's maybe not easy to describe that moment, but the next minute there was this light in the distance, and I thought, what the heck is that? And as I moved towards it, I realised it was a building, and I thought, I don't think there's any building out here. And it turns out what happened at Loch Ossian, there's actually a youth hostel. Now, I've looked at maps and stuff, but I've never been in that exact location. I've passed through Rannoch on trains and stuff, but I've never been at Loch Ossian until that day. And as I approached, I realised that there's lights on, and I thought, there's going to be people here. And I'm talking after 10 o'clock by this time. And so I chapped on the door, and this German guy came to the door, and the German-spoken guy came to the door. And he said, you need to speak to, I think it was a guy called Nick. And I said, well, where is he? He says, he's next door. And I chapped on this door, and this guy came out, and he took one look at me, and he thought, what the hell? What happened to you? He says, I said, have you got anything anywhere I can sleep? He says, yeah, we have. You look in some state. And I says, come in and tell me what happened. I told him what I've just told you. And he said, I know exactly what you've done. You've crossed, he mentioned the name, and he said, you've crossed that, and you've come, if you just kept going where you were, you would have hit a bridge that would have taken you over that burn, and then climbed up onto the track. It's still a long walk, but it's still you would have saved your stuff from getting wet. So that was that. And anyway, I took off my woolen jumper I had on, and I put it on the pulley. I nearly took the pulley out the ceiling. It was absolutely wringing wet. I was just awful. And to there's two German couples. I assume they were all German, but they never all spoke to me. But they felt really, really sorry for me. So they shared a bit of the food, and they also made me some tea. I was pretty miserable up until the point that I seen that light, and I really do believe there's a guiding force out there that assists us when we really meet danger. And I felt I was in danger that night. I'm not exaggerating. I did actually feel that was one major tricky moment in my life. And I thought back to that woman in the place at the Kinlochleven bar, I'm not mentioning the name, but she seemed to be right on the ball. So maybe she's got a gift that she doesn't know about, or maybe that's why she used her gift to help me that night.